If you want to get your Legolas roleplay going on in AVOWED, then you're going to need one of these 3 unique bows. Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade, giving you location today of all 3 unique bows and why I don't really like the bow class in AVOWED. I'm sure it's totally viable with the right kind of setup, but it's just not giving me much joy, and I'm going to talk about it after we show you where to go and get them all. Let's go. So yeah, much like daggers and wands, there are only a small limited supply of certain weapons, unique ones at least, and that's where bows fit in. There's only 3 of them. The first one you'll be able to pick up in Paradis Hightown. Go to the Streets of the Gods all the way in the northeast, and you're looking for the merchant all the way in the top right hand corner. As always, if you're looking at the map. You'll find it in this grand military building up the stairs, and you'll be able to go ahead and buy the first one. It's called Long Touch. It's going to give you 10% critical hit chance for power attacks while fine aiming, but also give you 5% damage against enemies with full health. I'll talk about why I'm not exactly ecstatic with that second perk, but yeah, there it is for 4,320 gold, but it may be slightly different depending on what level you are. If you go ahead and enchant it, you can increase that critical hit chance to 20% with your power attacks. But maybe more useful, killing the enemy gives you 10% attack damage and 20% attack speed for 6 seconds, making your multiple shots much quicker. Come up on a group of enemies, get that first stealth power shot with finesse, get that extra damage, and then move in with your other main weapon. There's obviously gear that can support bow as a main class, and I'm sure people are really enjoying doing it, but it just hasn't really grabbed me as much. The lack of any real difference in the ammo types and stuff like that also is kind of just a bit boring. That's maybe where the next bow comes in handy, but you won't get it until you go to the Shatterscarp area, the 3rd zone. All the way to the northwest, just where you make the exit for the Galloway's Tusk, you've got the Naku Kebble approach. If you go to that fast travel point, or find this gulch with a ton of Zuribs around, you should find a little end place where you can hop down into the gulch below, just outside the Leviathan area. Go ahead and pick up some of the electric seed pods as you may need them, as you're going to be activating 3 of these. First one's super simple, and don't forget that Giata also has the power to go ahead and use these. If you then do a 360 and look behind you, you'll notice these small little platforms going down into a small little cave alcove area. Again, activate the second one, and then go ahead and destroy the wooden wall behind you. And you'll notice in the distance, once you've gone ahead and got some of this stuff, that there is the 3rd one. Gia should still be able to hit it or go ahead and use one of the pods. Doors now open and you've got access to a shocking bow. Killing an enemy deals moderate stun and shock accumulation to nearby enemies. Hits will deal 10% bonus shock damage. Now, I'm not going to lie, the footage you're seeing is me using this end game where I just didn't have the resources to go and pump into upgrading some of these to my level, and I didn't really have appropriate gear. So maybe that's why I'm just not enjoying the bow as much. I definitely know there are a few pieces that can increase the, obviously, reload speed. Critical hits are going to be important, obviously, anything that boosts that too. If you go ahead and enchant this, you'll get high stun and shock accumulation, or power attacks release a cracking bolt that bounces between enemies, dealing low damage but high shock accumulation. But yeah, I do wish there were all the different types of elemental arrows, and it would make it just a bit more fun and interesting to take on versus different enemies that may have some of the resistances or weaknesses, rather than really just a small tiny amount of bows that only have one particular type. But I'm guessing the shock is the main one because it does produce that high stun and that high crit chance. But regardless of all that, I still feel like when I've tried earlier bows that weren't unique, they were just still a bit underwhelming. And then the 3rd unique bow that you can get is in the 4th zone, Galloway's Tusk, and really it's like the last quest before you go to the point of no return. So, I don't really want to spoil anything in the game. I am going to just rattle off the stats and what you can have to expect with this bow. And then without spoiling any of that last story section, I'll talk about more about how to get the bow. Ancient Alacrity will slow enemies down by 15% for 5 seconds. Power attacks give you 20% move speed for 5 seconds. Go ahead and enchant it and it increases it to 25% for 8 seconds. Otherwise, if you choose the 2nd enchantment, you can kill an enemy and it will slow down nearby enemies by 15% for 5 seconds. The bonus of this particular weapon, that at this stage you more than likely will get a good legendary out of it if you've managed to get one of your weapons up to that stage before you pick it up. In fact, I think that might be the lowest it can be anyway. So you won't have to do too much in terms of upgrades. course, the bad news is you're not going to have much use for it unless you really have left a ton of side quests and other content, because, as I said, you now go to the 5th and final zone, which is really the end of the game. And I'm getting to them spoilers, but don't leave just yet. I'm just going to say that I think, yeah, bows are good for absolutely a second class. Fire off a few shots and then switch over to a melee build or even a mage build. Obviously anything with high crit damage on your armors and stuff, so you're not messing around changing any gear like that. I think the bow is a perfect foil to something maybe like daggers or doing a kind of spell mage run. So you're safe that when you're increasing your critical damage, it's going to be doing a lot for your bows and any of your other gear that's suitable for it. But this bow particularly slowing things down a little bit, I don't know, it just feels like it's kind of a bit of a waste. I'd like to see the numbers pumped up a little bit more for sure. Then it'd be really good for crowd control, which can happen quite late game where you've got so many enemies swarming you. But I definitely would love to hear what your thoughts are. What kind of gear have you found that really complements it? Have you completed the whole game being a stealthy bow user? And at TOLD, without spoilers, you have to go and complete the main quest line in Galawain's Tusk. Not going to give major spoilers, but you'll have to head to Mount Forger, go and complete that, and then go to Solace Keep and be directed below it. Unless there's something I missed and there's another way in here, you might not be able to access and get this bow until you've done this quest line. And yeah, go through the dungeon and eventually you'll come across Sibilus part way through, and he's a pretty powerful mage obviously. Don't be using any kind of frost, poison or bleed damage if you can help it, as they're pretty resistant, like completely resistant against poison. Once he's dead, there's a series of small little rooms in the ruins behind him. Be careful, some of them do have traps, and the last one on the left will have the ancient alacrity. And yeah, make sure you bring at least 5 lockpicks. I'm not going to do a full walkthrough of this dungeon. It's quite large. You're literally going down, exploring all underneath the keep. There's no way you can actually miss it because you have to kill him, I do believe, to keep progressing. Although, don't quote me on that. Maybe you can be stealthy, just go and grab the bow and go past. But that would be missing out on a lot of experience. But yeah, slowing an enemy down, I think, no, it's probably not that great. The only benefit is, like I said, it will be a legendary item more than likely. So what's the best bow? I don't think it's the first one for sure. The benefits of Long Touch are really more suited for a stealth playthrough, or if that's your thing, go for it, go ahead and upgrade it. I would actually save your materials for the second one, the Storm Swarm. I think that shock damage and stuff can be really good. And I just think still at this stage, it's probably not going to be as useful. I have just had more fun with arquebuses or maybe pistols and stuff rather than the bow. Overall, if they can increase different types of ammo that you could possibly use, probably not going to do that though, or just give us maybe multiple shot bonuses and stuff or more gear, I think then it makes it a bit more viable. But disagree me, agree me, let me know in the comment section down below how you've been playing a classic Ranger build. Until next time, Ratbags, laters.